Give us a countdown. 3, 2, 1.
Front, home front, out front. So this is one thing that is happening to cement Richmond's reputation as a major waterfront city. Every waterfront city needs a ferry. And about this time next year, we will have a permanent ferry.
Look right here, look right here. Richmond Ferry. This is something that will never be done again. I want to thank those of you who came over here just for the ride, but I particularly want to thank those who are actual commuters. There are a lot of you on the boat today, and we look forward for you making many, many trips and filling this boat up for years to come.
I want to thank everyone for coming today, and particularly thank the Water Emergency Transportation Authority, WETA, Board of Directors, and Director Randall, the Board of Directors and Executive Director Randalls for their partnership in successfully launching this service today. Many of you were on the first boat with us at 6:10 this morning, and as you know, we had a great time. I want to just recognize a very few people. I'm not going to try to do it all, but I do have 4 other Richmond City Council members here today: Nat Bates, Ben Choi, Demlis Johnson, and Eduardo Martinez. And I see a few council members from adjoining cities, Gabe Quinto and Paul Fideli from El Cerrito, and I see Chris Kelly and Dan Ramiro from Hercules. They're here in line for their ferry, which is the next one coming up. They want to be sure they get in the front of the line for the next ferry. Special thanks to a champion of the service and President of the Bay Area Council, Jim Wonderman. He's right here somewhere. He's been a big champion for ferry service in general and for this ferry service. And then also WIDA Board Chair and former U.S. Coast Guard Vice Admiral Jody Breckenridge. She will come to the stage and she'll be our Master of Ceremonies today.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us here today. Mayor Butt, again to you, thank you for your persistency, for your advocacy for the ferries, and also for your partnership along with WIDA to make today a reality. You know, as the mayor mentioned, I served my professional career on active duty in the United States Coast Guard, and I can't, thank you very much. I can't tell you what a pleasure it is to come to a city that has such a rich maritime history. I'd like to acknowledge our ship workers from World War II, the Rosie the Riveters, who are here with us today. And I know many of those of you from Richmond have relatives, or if you're of the age, you yourselves were part of that very rich history of the 4 shipyards that were here and made such a difference to our efforts during World War II. We're very proud at WIDA to be part of returning a maritime entity into the Richmond waterfront, and also to have expanded opportunities for maritime jobs in the United States that this new ferry line represents. For this particular board for WIDA, although WIDA's been around a little while, we have one board member, Director Tony Intintily from Vallejo, who's been with this board since its inception. But for the rest of us, and we have 2 other board members, Director Jim Wonderman and Director Jeff Del Bono. I know Jeff is out there somewhere. Jeff, where are you? Well, from Alameda. But for most of us on the board, although we've seen expansions to the ferry system to the existing runs that we have, adding new time periods on, and we've stood up 2 new maintenance buildings and stuff, for most of us this is exciting because this represents the first new run in our tenure serving on a board, and that's a big deal to expand our service out. So we hope for Richmond that we will represent not only for the commuter workforce that will be moving from Richmond, coming into Richmond, but we also hope that we contribute to the vibrant economic environment here in Richmond and get more people to come into Richmond and see the history and do the beautiful walk that you have along the waterway. See the tributes that you have to the shipyards and to the shipyard workers who made such a difference to this country. So thank you to all of you for being here and participating in this, and we hope you enjoy the program we have today. So first, I'd like to acknowledge Congressman Mark DeSaulnier. Congressman DeSaulnier could not himself be with us today, but he sent a letter saying he wished he could be here, and I'm sure anybody in D.C. wishes they could be out of D.C. and be with us today. Hopefully, since he sits on transportation, you know, they've got important work to do. But he does note that this is arriving at a time of rapid growth in West Contra Costa County. The Richmond terminal will provide safe and reliable transportation for people that live and work in the East Bay. I'm proud that this project was aided by millions of dollars in grants from the Federal Transit Administration that were brought back to California District 11 to help East Bay residents and commuters. Again, my congratulations on your opening, and I wish you continued success. Mark DeSaulnier, Member of Congress from the 11th District. And with us today, we do have a representative from his office, his District Representative, Brandon Bratcher. Brandon's right over here. So thank you, Brandon, for being here, and thank you to the Congressman. It is now my pleasure to introduce the next speaker. We're very honored to have with us today Assembly Member Buffy Wicks from the 15th District. Assembly Member.
How y'all doing today? Everyone excited? I know, it's so exciting. Thank you very much, Chair Breckenridge, for this. And it's so exciting to see so many people from the community here celebrating what I think is actually a very big deal. And it's so great to be here, especially with this beautiful view that you don't get to enjoy right now because of the weather, but it is normally a very beautiful view. I wanted to start off by acknowledging the outstanding work of those elected officials and community leaders who have pushed so hard to bring ferry service back to Richmond. This gathering today to celebrate the opening of the Richmond Ferry would not be possible if it were not for the tireless efforts of Mayor Tom Butt. Yes. Supervisors Joya and Glover. Senator Nancy Skinner, who I believe is on her way as well. Former Senator Don Parada. Is Don here today? Okay, he was also a big piece of this. A round of applause for him. And critically, the wisdom of the voters of California. You all. Yes, give yourselves a round of applause. When many had given up hope, Mayor Butt never gave up on returning ferry service to Richmond, and he kept up that fight because he understood the importance of ferry service to Richmond and to the entire region, to the entire West Contra Costa County area, and frankly, the East Bay. And he kept up that fight for over a decade, and we are here today because of his efforts, and we really applaud that. And during his time in the state legislature, Senator Don Parada was a tireless advocate for finding critical funding for infrastructure projects. And I know we need more infrastructure funding today. We know we need that. We need that in our BART system. We need that on our roads. But we do need that critically for our ferry service as well. We need an all-of-the-above approach when it comes to our transportation needs. And Don ultimately put the trust in the voters' hands. And in California, he pushed for the passage of Proposition 1B in 2006. 1B raised almost $20 billion for infrastructure projects. And we desperately needed this. And the projects, the mission of those projects were, quote, to relieve congestion, improve air quality, and enhance the safety and security of our transportation system. And we know we needed that then, and we need that more now more than ever. Well, the voters, you all overwhelmingly passed Proposition 1B, and we're here today because of the wisdom of that policy. And I know that we can do big things here in California. You know, the governor just launched a big aggressive budget today. I'm excited about some of the projects that he had in place. And I think this project demonstrates that when we get together, when we work together, when we organize together, we can achieve big things. We can create public policy that helps people, that gives people the ability to get to work easily, that gives people the ability to live near where they need to commute to and from, and to create transit-oriented housing. We know that we've seen this will be a hub of transit-oriented housing, and we know that the housing and transportation crisis that we're in go hand in glove, and we have to think about these things together. The ferry service also makes sense from an environmental perspective. Last year, over 3 million passengers rode WIDA ferries, and when people are out in the water, they're not on Interstate 80. I was recently commuting on I-80 from South Berkeley to Hercules during rush hour. It took me 90 minutes. How many of you have experienced that same thing? Right, the entire room. So this is why we need services like this, and I do believe this is the first step in many to help alleviate some of the congestion that we see. We know I-80 can be a parking lot. We know that it's earned its reputation as being one of the worst congested interstates in this country. And I am committed in Sacramento doing everything that I can to make sure that we get more transportation funding to support projects like this and other alternative public transportation projects. I'm just excited to be here today. I'm excited to be here with all of you. I know many of you put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into making this happen. I'm excited to get on this ferry myself and give it a ride. You know, I have a 2-year-old daughter, and she'd never been on a boat before. Last weekend, we took her on a ferry from Jack London to San Francisco. She loved it. So she and I will be back riding this ferry. I will report back on her findings. She'll give a lot of critiques and criticism. I call her my little dictator right now. So she'll have an opinion about it, but I know she'll love it. So thank you so much for having me be here today. And it's just a great day for Richmond. Thank you.
You've already heard a couple of members mention this next speaker, who's another individual who deserves a great deal of credit for making today a reality, who's been around since the first idea of a ferry came up coming into Richmond. It is now my pleasure to introduce County Supervisor John Joya, who also serves on the California Air Resources Board.
All right, hello Richmond. And of course to supporters of ferry service from outside Richmond, glad to have you here. So welcome to the inauguration of the best commute to work anywhere in the San Francisco Bay Area, right? And how many of you rode with Mayor Butt this morning on that first 610 ride? Great. So this is truly a great day for Richmond and also the San Francisco Bay Area, because today, after a 61-year absence, regular sustainable ferry service from Richmond is back. And we're going to work to build the ridership and expand this service to late evenings and weekends, right? Right. And it's appropriate that we celebrate this momentous event in this historic building, which formerly housed a Ford auto plant and also helped support the World War II effort. And you heard the number of the Rosies are here who worked in the shipyards, and one of them told me she took the ferry from San Francisco to Richmond to work in the shipyards during World War II. So, just like this Ford building has been seen a renaissance, so has ferry service around the bay. And we may not know this, but ferries between Richmond and San Francisco do have a long history. And for those of us who live in Richmond and know McDonald Avenue, that the idea started with someone named Augustine McDonald, who the street's named after, who visited Point Richmond in 1895 and conceived the idea of having the Transcontinental Railroad end here in Richmond and then to have a ferry connection to San Francisco. And in 1900, 5 years later, that rail and that ferry service started. It only took 5 years. Imagine if we could act that fast today. So this ferry service will not only be a benefit for Richmond, it will benefit the entire Bay Area. It will make our air cleaner and our commute shorter by taking thousands of cars off the road. Right? We heard about that. It will also provide economic benefit by conveniently linking more people to the businesses and great opportunities that we have here in West Contra Costa County. And this ferry service didn't just happen. It took leadership in the Bay Area and around the state to make this possible, and we've heard a bit about that from Assemblymember Wicks. But this would not have happened without the local efforts here in Contra Costa and in Richmond. And I want to start first by saying that the voters of Contra Costa in 2004 approved a new half-cent transportation sales tax. How many of you remember Measure J? I have my voter pamphlet from 2004, and it was that measure that provides the operational funding needed to support this ferry. I served on the Transportation Authority in Contra Costa back in 2004 and was part of developing the spending plan that we put before voters. And there's a few of us still left. I see Amy Worth, and I see Julie Pierce and Janet Abelson, all of whom we served together on this committee in 2004. And we all remember the many discussions about including funding for Richmond Ferry. And there were some who said, don't put the money toward ferries, put it to other things. But in the end, those of us who supported a ferry were successful in allocating $45 million to ferry service, and the voters approved it. We just didn't think it was going to take 15 years, but I'm really happy that it's starting today, which is my birthday, so that's a great thing. And I also want to call out the leadership of the City of Richmond, especially Mayor Tom Butt, who was the strongest supporter for ferry service in Richmond city government. Tom Butt, as both a council member and as a mayor, spent countless hours working to make this a reality. He worked with city staff, the Transportation Authority staff, regional and state agencies, with WIDA. So Tom, many people just don't know how, where are you, Tom? Don't know how many hours you put in, and you put in lots. Finally, let me end with a commitment towards our clean technology future. As a member of the California Air Resources Board, I am proud that our agency funded the construction of the first ever non-polluting, zero-emission hydrogen fuel cell electric ferry boat that is being built right now in the city of Alameda. And that's as part of the effort to fight climate change and make our air cleaner, right? So when that boat is completed later this year, it will sail the waters of San Francisco Bay under a pilot program. And I am working with the Bay Area Air Quality Management District that I serve on and others to identify funding to bring this zero-emission ferry boat to Richmond. And our state air board is committed to eventually having a fleet of all non-polluting ferry boats on San Francisco Bay. That is the future. So again, the Bay Area will continue to lead the way, and I will end with, out of deference to Mr. Wonderman from the Bay Area Council, thanks for being a part of this wonderful day.
You know, I wish I could share with all of you the picture that I can see from up here, because if there was anyone who was ever in any doubt whether this was a wanted or appreciated, needed mode of transportation for Richmond, the turnout here and the level of enthusiasm speaks for itself. So thank you to all of you for taking time to be here with us to share this today. Quite frankly, we haven't had a turnout this big before. It's a little daunting, but we're very happy all of you came out to share this with us today. It is now my pleasure to introduce a man who really needs no introduction in Richmond, but to bring back up the mayor of your city, Mayor Tom Butt.
So I'm kind of the cleanup hitter today. Everything somebody forgot to say, they slipped me a note and said, please take care of this. So in no particular order, I've seen some other city council members from Contra Costa come in, Amy Worth and Julie Pierce, who are also active on CCTA and MTC and ABAG, Janet Abelson from El Cerrito, Rita Xavier from San Pablo, and there may be others there. If I missed you, I'm sorry. Our city manager, Carlos Martinez, you know, he just started a couple of months ago, so we can't take credit for any of this, but he gets all the glory. You know, that's That's the best kind of job you can have. John Joy already talked about Contra Costa's Measure J transportation tax, which will be funding operations of the Richmond Ferry service for the next 10 years. And we hope more. If ridership gets up to a certain level, then we may be able to stretch that out further. Also, a couple of other city staff members I want to recognize. Richard Mitchell, our recently retired planning director, is another staff person who has worked on this tirelessly over the years, along with Shasa Curl. So I see Shasa there. I think, I don't know if Richard's here. I know he was on the ferry with us today. And then again, finally, before I leave here, I want to thank the WIDA board and their staff and Nina Reynolds for everything they've done to make this possible. So.
No, Nancy's not here. I would like to also acknowledge the WIDA staff, but for those of you who ride the ferries, our ferries are operated by Blue and Gold, and I know we had the ferry operators from this morning, as well as a number of other representatives from Blue and Gold here. If you could raise your hands. These are really the front line for us. These are the people who provide the service and what you see each and every day, and so we appreciate them very much and want to acknowledge them. Thank you.
We're going to cut a ribbon.
Give us a countdown.
3, 2, 1.
3, 2, 1.